Beatrice Fagelman, Bunya Bas Chaim Asher Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an Aliyah and the family Ein Nechama. Shkoyach. And to thank Bennett Goldberg, our Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Elul, for dedicating all of the Shiurim and Drushes in memory of his parents. To thank Jonas and Rachel Wolf of Highland Park, New Jersey, for dedicating this year in the schus of the neshama of Rachel's mother. We hope that the neshamas have an aliyah and the family a nechama. And opposed with that, let's begin. Beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Ches. We are picking up at the Gemara on Zayin Amud Beis 7b, literally at the beginning of the Gemara, about 13, 14 lines up from the bottom. So the Gemara begins with the statement: Katani ein molin babasar meilahu dalaka ha'isuri ika. Supposed to just to orient ourselves a bit. So remember again, the Mishnah was speaking about the impact of the blood service on Kodshei Kadashim and Kodshim Kalim. So for example, when it comes to Kodshei Kadashim, so the Gemara explains, the Mishnah explains, that Lifnei Zrikas Damim, so again, by Kodshei Kadashim, before you go ahead and you sprinkle the blood, so ultimately again, it is both the basar as well as the limbs. Both the basar as well as the emurim that ultimately are subject to Meilah. After Zrika, ultimately, the emur and the limbs are subject to Meilah, but the basar is not subject to Meilah. It's that phrase that the Gemara is picking up on right now, that after Zrika, the basar is not subject to Meilah, to which the Gemara infers, Katani ein molin babasar. So now the Mishnah told me that after Zrika, there's no longer any kind of Meilah by the meat. So Meilahu dalaka ha'isuri ika. So what that sounds like is what? What it sounds like, Rabbi says, after Zrika, there's no longer any Meilah for the meat, but there's still some other kind of Isser. There's still some other kind of Isser. To which the Gemara says, Va'amai, but why would that be? Hamamona de Kohenhu. I don't understand. If you have Kodshei Kadashim and you have the Basar, and you had an appropriate Zrika, so after Zrika is done, that meat becomes ultimately again the property of the Kohen. So again, why would it be subject to anything? I was supposed to hear the inference. So the inference is after Zrika, the meat itself is no longer subject to Meilah. It sounds like Meilah is gone, but there's still some other kind of prohibition. Why would that be? Halacha l'maisa, again, it's the mammon of the Kohen. Lo kasha. So we'll say the Gemara at first says it's not a problem. Mishum denasiv reisha molin, nasiv seifa ein molin. We'll say it's only because it's trying to create textual symmetry. Remember again, it's contrasting two different states. The state of before Zrika and the state of after Zrika. So by Kodshei Kadashim, in the state before Zrika, what's the halacha? Before Zrika, both the meat as well as the emurin are subject to Meilah. Right? Then it contrasts it ultimately again with the second. Where's the second case? Second case is post Zrika, so therefore it just employs the same lashon, that the emurid are subject to Meilah and the meat is not subject to Meilah. But it doesn't mean to say the meat's not subject to Meilah, but subject to something else. That's not what it means to say. What it means to say is once the after Zrika is done, the meat is no longer subject to Meilah and permitted to the Kohanim. Ema Seifa. Let's take a look at the second part of the Mishnah. So remember again, the second part of the Mishnah also dealt with Kodshim Kalim. Right? So Kodshim Kalim, what's the halacha? Before Zrika, for Kodshim Kalim, there is no Meilah, both for the meat as well as for the limbs. After Zrika, what did the Mishnah say? After Zrika, there is Meilah by the emor and the sacrificial limbs, but there is no Meilah by the basar, by the meat. So the Gemara does the same thing. So the Gemara says, Ema Seifa, Bekachim Kalim Kulan Lahachmer. So what did the end of the Mishnah say? By Kachim Kalim, Zrika always has a chumradik effect. How so? Ketzad, Basar Kodshim Kalim, Lifnei Zrikas Damim Ein Molin Bahen. So also when it comes to Kodshim Kalim, before Zrika happens, there's no Meilah. I'll say again, remember, keep on reinforcing this. This is the distinction between Kodshim Kalim and Kodshe Kadashim. Kodshe Kadashim begin the carbonic journey being subject to Meilah, and ultimately it's Zrika which extracts it from Meilah, or at least the basar, not the emurin. Kodshim Kalim is just the opposite, begins its carbonic journey not subject to Meilah, and only becomes subject to Meilah when? After Zrika. And after Zrika, what is it that becomes subject to Meilah? Only the emurin, the sacrificial limbs, not the basar. So that's what we're picking up on over here. So the Gemara says, Lifnei Zrika stamim emolin bahen ube emurehen. So before Zrika is done, there's no Meilah by the meat or by the limbs. Vein chayav naleh mishum pigul no servatame. La'achar Zrika stamim. But after Zrika is done, what's the halacha? Molin be emurehen. Ultimately, again, the sacrificial limbs are subject to Meilah. Ve'ein mo'alin babasar. But there is no Meilah with what? With the basar, with the meat. To which, again, Abba say the Gemara makes the same inference. Meilah hu deleka. What it sounds like is, it is the meat of Kodshim Kalim after Zrika that is not subject to Meilah. However, ha'isuri ika. So I'll say, do you understand where the Gemara is coming from with this? When you make a statement like, well, it's not subject to Meilah, that leaves the door open to say it's not subject to Meilah, but what? But what? Subject to something else. So that's the diuk the Gemara is making. I understand meat kodshim kalim, meat after Zerika is not subject to Meilah, but perhaps it is subject to some other iser. V'amai, but why would that be so? Ha mamona de bailim. Who? We'll say at the end of the day, the meat of Kodshim Kalim is consumed by who? Is consumed by none other than the owners of the carbon, right? The Yisraelim. So if that's the case, why would they be subject to any kind of Isser? They're totally permitted. To which the Gemara says, oh, what's the case? Rabbi Chanina liyotzin. So we'll say, Rabbi Chanina says, what are we talking about over here? What's the case of the Mishnah? The case of the Mishnah is where you sacrificed the Kodshim Kalim, you did Zrika, or I should say before Zrika, what occurred? The meat was taken outside of the precincts of the Beis HaMikdash. Take a look at Rashi, all the way the second to last line. Rabbi Chanina liyotze kigon sheyatza habasar chutz lemichitzaso v'shuv nizrak adam. So we'll say, what happened? The meat was taken outside of the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, and only then was Zrika done. And in accordance with who? Rabbi Akiva he. So also remember again, Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion, this was yesterday's daf, Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that Allah says Zrika works for sacrificial meat which was taken outside of the precincts of the Beis HaMikdash. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion, that even though the meat is outside, if Zrika is done, it removes, that Zrika removes Meilah. So the Gemara says Rabbi Akiva he, and therefore again, it's supposed to say the Gemara is giving a very narrow definition of the Seifa case. So the Seifa case of the Mishnah, which says that once Zrika is done, the meat of Kodshim Kalim is no longer subject to Meilah. The Gemara is saying it's not subject to Meilah, but it's subject to something else. So what's the case? The case is where the meat was taken outside of the Beis HaMikdash before Zrika was done, and then Zrika was done. And whose opinion does the Mishnah reflect? It reflects the view of Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Akiva say? That even if meat was taken outside of the Beis HaMikdash and Zrika was subsequently done, the Zrika works to what? To what? To remove the Meilah status. To which the Gemara Rabbi Akiva he, but the Gemara not qualifies this. V'chi am Rabbi Akiva Zrika mo'eles liyotze l'sreifa. I will say, when Rabbi Akiva says that Zrika works, even for sacrificial meat which was taken outside of the Beis HaMikdash, what does that mean? It works. Right? What does it mean it works, I will say? So what it means is it works to take off Meilah. It also works for something else. If we take a look at the last Rashi on the daf, Am Rabbi Akiva Zrika mo'eles liyotze lo'tziyam Meilah ulahavio l'sreifa. So listen to this. So the halacha is when Rabbi Akiva says that if you have meat outside of the Beis HaMikdash and you do Zrika on that meat inside of the Beis HaMikdash, that Zrika works. That Zrika works to do two things. Number one, to go ahead and take away the Meilah status. It also works for another interesting detail regarding karbanos, which is sreifa, right? The act of burning their karbanos. I'm also now look at this Rashi. La'alter, now the truth is the Hagos Tziyun changes is to velo la'alter. You don't have to burn it immediately. Kimau shar kodshim psulin. De lahachi mahangele zrika she'onisraf la'alter ella Ad shetu ubar tsuraso. So we'll say, so this is an interesting idea over here. So to be clear, when Rabbi Akiva says that if you took meat out, sacrificial meat outside of the Beis HaMikdash, and then you did zrika inside of the Beis HaMikdash, that zrika, quote unquote, works. What does it work for? Number one, it removes Meilah. Number two, another interesting sacrificial detail, which is under normal circumstances, the halacha is when you have a carbon that is pasul, you must burn it immediately. This type of carbon that is pasul but had a zrika, ultimately again you have a little bit of a longer window to burn it. So you don't have to dispose of it immediately, you have a bit more time. However, aval tap of ches, aval la'achilahu delo meratze. Rabbi say about halacha l'maaseh, even Rabbi Akiva will agree that when we say that this zrika works might remove me'ilah, works might give you a longer window, right, to go ahead and burn the carbon. But what doesn't work mean? You can't eat it. You can't eat it. So therefore, again, I will say, according to the Gemara over here, what the Mishnah is teaching me is in the case of Kodshim Kalim, that halacha l'maisa, so again, the halacha is, when zrika is done on Kodshim Kalim, so what's the halacha? Number one, the emurin becomes subject to me'ilah, and the basar is not subject to me'ilah. Again, so the Gemara understands not subject to me'ilah, but it sounds like it's subject to something else. Okay, so how do we set up the case? It's Rabbi Akiva. The meat of the Kodshim Kalim was taken outside of the Beis HaMikdash before Zrika. And then what happens? You do Zrika in the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah. So what's the halacha? So the meat is no longer subject to Me'ilah, according to Rabbi Akiva. The meat no longer has to be immediately burned because it had Zrika. However, again, the meat certainly will not be fit for consumption. Good. So we'll say that's the halacha. Hadrun alach Kodshei Kadoshim. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Weiter. Chatas ha'of. We'll say again. So now really fascinating sugi over here. So chatas ha'of. So we'll say, so just take a look at the first tosas here on the left hand side. So tosas chatas ha'of. Tosas gives a good introductory remark. Ad hashta ari bedin psule kodshim masayim ma'alu ba'an umikan ve'elach ari biksherim. So we'll say, so tosas just says, by the way, we're switching subjects here a bit. Up until now, we've been focusing on the din of kodshim psulim, right? Invalid kodshim, and ultimately, again, when they go ahead, or I should say, under what circumstances they become subject to me'ilah. From this point in time, we're actually going to speak about the halachos of me'ilah vis-a-vis appropriate or kosher kodshim, karbanos that are good. So watch this. Very interesting. Chatas auf. Mo'alin ba mishahuk desha. So we'll say chatas of a bird chatos is subject to me'ilah from the moment that it is consecrated. Look at Rashi, right hand side. Chatas of mo'alin ba mishahuk desha bepeh. So we'll say as soon as you are makdish the chatas of verbally, right? As soon as you verbally designate it, salach l'maaseh becomes subject to me'ilah. Filun imnehana mimena mechayim kigon shemachra. So we'll say, so that's halacha number one. As soon as you verbally designate your chatas ha'of, ultimately it becomes subject to me'ilah. Nimlaka, once malika is done, so we'll say again, remember, chatas ha'of is not shechted in a classic way. Instead, what happens? It has malika. Kohen grows out his thumb fingernail, right? And ultimately, again, pierces the head of the bird from the back, right? Again, we saw this extensively, goes in and separates essentially the vertebrae, the spinal cord, and lops off the head. The head has to remain attached. So the flesh by the neck has to remain. If the head becomes totally detached, so the carbon is pasul, has to remain attached by the flesh at the neck. So nimlaka, once malika is done, what's the halacha? Hochshira lihi pasal b'tvul yom u'memechosher kippurim u'balina. So we'll say another interesting halacha. Once malika is done, so at this point in time, the bird itself becomes hochshir, becomes receptive to receive tumah, to either again lihi pasal. Now pasal means it becomes invalid. We're going to see there's a distinction between pasal versus metame, right? Pasal means you could receive tumah, or you did receive tumah, but you cannot convey tumah. So once malika has been done, the bird is capable of receiving tumah, becoming tameh, through contact with a tvul yom. So remember again, we know who's the tvul yom. That's the guy who went to the mikvah by day, or woman, it doesn't be a guy. Person went to the mikvah by day, but ultimately again needs sunset in order to complete their Tara process. So they did everything they needed to do, but they just need sunset. That's Tvul Yom. Tvul Yom still conveys Toma. Mechusar Kippurim, that's a person who will say, so remember again, halacha l'maisa, there are certain situations where you could go to the mikvah, do everything you need to do, but there are still certain other karbonos you have to bring in order to affect complete, we'll call it purification. So the classic case of this is who? Mitzora. Right, so Mitzora, he has his waiting period, he goes to the mikvah, but still he has to bring karbanos. Before he brings karbanos, could convey tumah to the bird offering, ubelina, and ultimately again being left over overnight, essentially no sar. So I'll say like Rashi, Hokshar li pasal. Rashi says, Kilomar mishenimluka nitosif bakidusha shinifselas imnaga batvol yom omuchusr kippurim belina. So we'll say, just want to point something out. Remember, the greater the level of sanctity, the more receptive something is to tumah, or I should say, the more sensitive it is to tumah. So, for example, when you verbally designate the bird, right, you've identified it as a carbon. What's the halacha? Subject to Meilah. Subject to Meilah. Fine. Malika, now, which means you've ultimately, again, done the first actual process in the sacrificial order. You've slaughtered it. At this point in time, it's capable of receiving tumah from the Tvul Yom, to Mechusar Kippurim, and Lina. Next. Huza dama. We'll say if hazia is what? Is rika, right? You sprinkle the blood, right? If you go ahead and you sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, so at that point in time, chayav and alav mishum pigul, no sar vitame. So at that point in time, what's the halacha? The bird could be subject to the halachos of pigul, no sar and tame. Look at Rashi. Hiza dama chayav and alav mishum pigul. So remember again, the sprinkling of the blood. So we'll say, see the difference, right? So we'll see all of this in detail. But remember again, you actually take the bird and sprinkle it, right? As opposed to, let's say again, with an animal where you shecht it, receive the blood in a kli. Here we're going to, you take the bird itself and you sprinkle it. So we'll say, so the Gemara says over here that once you go ahead and you do this haziyah, so Rashi says hazad of kam makom zrika to behema. So we'll say, remember, the sprinkling of the blood by the oath is the equivalent of zrika by a behema. Tahazah kalvaas bepigel shechishev ba kodim lachin kimo zrika de behema v'shuvnami yesh bo isur nosar v'tamei im nitma dazaka. I was supposed to listen to this. So it's an interesting halacha. So if you could have a machshavas pigel, for example, at any point in time. Let's say when the Kohen's doing the malika. So let's say he has in mind that he's going to eat this carbon 3 days from now, whatever, or eat it outside of the Beis HaMikdash. That's a machshavas pigel. But when does the machshavas pigel actually create a pigel status on the bird itself? Only at the time that the blood is sprinkled. Right? Only at the time that the blood is actually sprinkled. That's what it's saying. So ultimately, again, huza dama, if you went ahead and you sprinkled the blood, chayav mishum pigel, no savatame. At that point in time, then the bird becomes capable of contracting the pigel state, the nosar state, and the tameh state. Ve'in ba Meilah. But I will say halacha l'maisa, once haziyah is done, so what happens? It is no longer subject to Meilah. Rashi says, T'chevan dehuza dama yesh partakans. Because also remember again, haziyah, the sprinkling of the blood by the bird, is the equivalent of zrika. So just like zrika removes Meilah, at least from the basar, not from the imur, but from the basar, so to haziyah by the bird will remove Meilah as well. Incredible. Says the Gemara. Let's go. Katani hochshira li pasal b'tvul yom u'mechusar kippurim u'balina. So we're picking up on one important phrase in the Mishnah over here. So the Mishnah said that ultimately, again, after Malika is done, so what's the halacha? The bird is capable, right? It's hochshira, it is fit to receive tumah from a tvul yom, mechusar kippurim, and lina, remaining overnight. To which the Gemara's medayik, I mentioned this in the Mishnah, lipasel in avalitamuye lo. They're both saying now what's interesting about this is the following. Remember, the lashon of lipasel means an item is capable of becoming tameh, but not capable of transmitting tumah. You hear that distinction? It can become tameh, can't transmit. So the Mishnah now makes it sound like once Malika has been done, the bird is capable of receiving tumah from a tvul yom, mechusar kippurim, lina, but ultimately again is not capable of transferring tumah to anything or anyone else. So Rashi, look at Rashi, so again, ultimately, the bird itself could become tamei, or it could become, I should say, pasul, but cannot convey tumah to anything else. To which the Gemara says, Masnisin money. Whose opinion does our Mishnah reflect? So the Gemara says, Rabbanan he. The Mishnah says, our Mishnah reflects the view of the Rabbanan. Look at Rashi again for one more moment. Rabbanan he. D'amri kishem sheposel tvul yom ochle truma umashke truma. Because as Rebbe says, we're going to see in just a moment, the Rabbanan hold that a tvul yom, which is a person who went to the mikvah by day, but just needs nightfall to finish his tarab, to take away the rest of his tumah. If he touches truma food or truma drink, right, he ultimately passes it. He renders it invalid, or is that it cannot be consumed. It does not. It cannot convey tuma afterwards, but it renders it pasal. So kach posa ochle kodesh de'ino metame letame acherim. So too, ultimately, again, the Rabbana will hold that halacha l'maisa, a tvul yom could do the same thing by kodesh as well. Let's see this inside the Sanya. Here we go. The Sanya. Abba Shal Omer tvul yom tchila lakodesh. So we'll say Abba Shal says that a tvul yom is tchila lakodesh. Now, before you turn the page, just take a look at the last Rashi and Amud Aleph. Abba Shal Omer tvul yom tchila lakodesh. The Havi Rishon umashvi lakodesh sheni. So we'll say, so Abba Shal says that a tvul yom is a rishon. So let's remember again in the wide world of Tumah. So remember again how it works. You could have something called a vi'avos haTumah. You could have an ava Tumah, rishon l'Tumah, sheni l'Tumah. Shlishi only applies in certain circumstances, but that's how Tumah works. So you go from an av to a rishon. Sabba Shol says as follows. Look at that last Rashi and Amud Aleph. Sabba Shol Omer tvul yom tchil kodesh tavi rishon. So we'll say Abba Shol holds that a tvul yom ultimately again is a rishon. That's his status. He's considered to be a rishon l'tumah. Therefore, what? When he touches kodesh, he makes kodesh into what? Into what? Into a sheni. The osa sheni, osa shlishi urevi'i bakodesh uposa satruma. And Rabbi say again, when it comes to kodesh, ultimately, again, a sheni can make a shlishi can make a revi'i. That's where it ends. So I'll say, so therefore, again, Abba Shal holds, so this is the important part over here. Abba Shal holds that a tvul yom has the status of a rishon. Status of a rishon l'tumah. And because that's a rishon l'tumah, therefore, if he touches kodesh, he makes it into a sheni. Amud Beis. Rabbi Meir says, metame es ha-kodesh, upos la satruma. Rabbi Meir says, he disagrees. He says, I think that a tvul yom is metame kodesh, right? He certainly conveys tumah, ultimately again to kodesh, which I will say, Rashi says over here, Meir metame es kodesh, dehu sheni, umash the kodesh litre. Meir holds that a tvul yom is a sheni. He holds that, right? The Rabbanan hold that Rabbi Abba Shal holds that a tvul yom is a rishon. Rabbi Meir holds that a tvul yom is a sheni. Because of that, ultimately again, he'll make kodesh into a shlishi, uposel as a truma. But if he touches truma, so I'll say ultimately again, he'll make the truma pasul, but he doesn't turn the truma itself into an entity that has the ability to convey tumah. The Chachamim say, "Kishem shu posel mashke truma va'ochle truma." The Chachamim say the same way that ultimately what the tvul yom has the ability to go ahead and pasel, right? Make pasel, which also means make something tamei, but that item cannot in turn make something else tamei. The same way that the tvul yom is posel drinks of truma, va'ochle truma, and food of truma, kachu posel mashke kodesh va'ochle chodesh. So too ultimately what? He has the ability to pasel food and drink of kodesh. Shabbos, you see, this is the opinion of the Chachamim, who hold that effectively a tvul yom, while he is tamei, does not have and has the ability to be metame. His tumah is limited in that which he is metame is pasal, but does not have the ability in turn to convey tumah. Therefore, again, I will say the opinion of the Rabbanon or the Chachamim is ultimately the view expressed in our Mishnah. Amar Rav Ali Abba Shal. So Rav said Abba Shal, Meilah asu b'kadshim. So I'll say, so Rav said Abba Shal, it appears that the rabbis went ahead and essentially made a chumrah. Meilah means a higher level, a stricter level, by kachim. In what sense? Shavyuhu rabbanan l'tvul yom karishon. So we'll say, so now Rava says, Abba Shal, in accordance with your logic, the rabbanan were unusually machmir with a tvul yom, to essentially make him into a Rishon. Right, I will say which is the shita of Abba Shol, right? To make a Tvul Yom into a Rishon, I will say, is a pretty significant step. So why would we do this? So it must be because the rabbis wanted to be machmir, ultimately by kachim, to make sure that people kept a distance from people who are ritually impure to kachim. Therefore, therefore the Rabbana made a chumrah. Shavim about Tzvul Rishon. Rabbi Meir, ultimately, again, according to Rabbi Meir, ki ochal sheni, that ultimately again a Tvul Yom is like someone who ultimately again ate an ochel that was a sheni. That's the level of tumah that he has. The Rabbanan, kevan de taval, kalash tumah, pasla mashvi, tamilo mashvi. According to the Rabbanan, I will say the Rabbanan hold that Tvul Yom in general has the lowest level of tumah. Why is that? It makes sense. Because what is the Tvul Yom waiting for? Just Harav Shemesh, just nightfall, right? In fact, again, he's done everything that has been asked of him. He's mamish just sitting and waiting for the sun to set. So because of that, according to the Rabbanan, he has the low kalash tumah. His tumah is very weak, and therefore, again, he only has the ability, if he touches sacrificial or sanctified items, to render them pasul. So they'll be pasul, but at the end of the day, they will not be able to convey tumah. Good. So says, therefore, again, the Gemara suggests that our Mishnah reflects the view of the Rabbanan vis-a-vis Tvul Yom. Beautiful. Huza dama chayavin. So we'll say very interesting now. So what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said once you go ahead and you sprinkle the blood of the bird on the Mizbeach, so what's the halacha? So the Mishnah said, Ein ba Meilah. There's no longer, the bird itself is no longer subject to Meilah. To which the Gemara said, we'll say, same kash we had in the last parak, Meilahu delaka avali suri'ika. So we'll say, what does that sound like? It sounds like once you do zrika on the bird, then what's the halacha, or hazia we call it, right? Sprinkling, then what's going to be the halacha? We'll say it's not subject to Meilah, but what? It sounds like maybe there's some other isra that remains. V'amai, but why would that be so? Once you do the sprinkling of the blood, ha mamona de kohanim hu. Both say the bird becomes the mammon of the kohen. If it becomes the mammon of the kohen, there should be no problem. In other words, we'll say the kohen eats the bird, so there should be no problem over here. Rabbi Chanina liyotse, Rabbi Akiva. So liyotse. So we'll say again. The Gemara sets it up the same way we set it up last time. What's the case? The case is where he did malika on the bird, took it out of the Beis Hamikdash before zurika was done, and therefore, whose opinion is being echoed in the Mishnah? The opinion of Rabbi Akiva. So liyotse, Rabbi Akiva he da'amar zrika mo'eles liyotse. And therefore, again, the Mishnah reflects the view of Rabbi Akiva, who says that halacha l'maisa, zrika works by yotze. Which means what? That if you do zrika on an animal, on sacrificial animal that is not inside of the Beis Hamikdash, ultimately the zrika is effective. But what is it effective for? What is it effective for? To remove Meilah. What is it not effective for? To render it fit for consumption. The lav bas achilahu. Good. So says the Gemara. But now we come to an interesting machlokes. So Amrav Huna Amrav. So we'll say, so Huna says the name of Rav. Good. It is. All right. We'll get into a little bit. There's a whole discussion about, and previously in the cases of taking out the animal and then doing zrika, it's easy to set up that case because the blood is in the kli, right? Here by the bird, we're going to come back to this case. There's tons to discuss. We'll do it later. So the Gemara says as follows: Amrav Huna Rav. So we'll say here we go. So if we're going to say the name of Rav, we'll say this is really a fascinating situation. Mitzui chata. So we'll say a word of background over here. By the bird, so there's really two parts to the blood avodah. There is the sprinkling, what we call the hazia, which is, again, you do malika, then you mamish just sprinkle the bird against the mizbeach, and then there is the mitzui. The mitzui is the squeezing out of the rest of the blood from the bird. We're focusing now on the mitzui right now. So here we go. Amrav Huna Amarav. Mitzui chata sa'of eno ma'akev. So also if Huna says the name of Rav, that Allah l'maisa, the squeezing out of the blood from the body of the oaf is not ma'akev. It's not ma'akev. I will say that you have to do it, but Allah l'maisa is not. Look at Rashi for just a moment before the lines get wide. Amrav Huna Amarav. Mitzui chata sa'of. He says, so I'll say ultimately again, he's quoting the pasuk, because the pasuk says, Vanishar b'dam yimatzeh. So we'll say, it says, the rest of the blood shall be squeezed out. that pasuk is mentioned after the hazah, after the sprinkling of the blood. So halacha l'maisa, the whole pasuk is v'hiza midam achatas al kira mizbeach. So you will go and you will sprinkle the blood of the bird on the side of the mizbeach. V'hanishar badam, the rest of the blood. We'll say this is the rest of the blood that's in the body of the bird. Yimatzeh al yisod mizbeach chatasu, shall be squeezed out by the base of the mizbeach. It is a chatos. So now we're going to see a yisodistic machlokes about the role of squeezing of the remainder of the blood. So Rav Huna said the name of Rav, mitzvah chatasov eino ma'akev. Halacha l'maisa, as much as you're supposed to go in and squeeze out the remainder of the blood from the body of the bird, it's not ma'akev. V'tani Rav, Huza dama, and therefore again Rav understands in the Mishnah. We'll say that when the Mishnah seeks out the real blood service of the bird, what does it say? Huza dama, the blood is sprinkled. Zrika of the bird blood is the ikr. The mitzvah, which is a squeezing out, is a mitzvah, but it is not ma'akev. It's not an indispensable part of the avodah. Rav Ada bar Ava Amarav. Rav Ada bar Ava, on the other hand, disagrees. Rav says this is machlokes in what Rav said. So Rav Ada bar Ava said no. Rav said mitzvah chatas of ma'akev. Not true. Not true. Right? The squeezing out of the rest of the blood of the bird is absolutely ma'akev. Vitana Rav mitzah dama. And therefore, we'll say Rav in Rav's version of the Mishnah. In Rav's version of the Mishnah, it says halacha l'maisa mitzah dama. That it says only once the blood of the bird has been squeezed out. Again, do all these halachos apply? Pigul applies, Nosra applies, Lina applies, and it is no longer subject to Meilah. So we'll say, so for our purposes, the fundamental machlokes is, it's a two prime machlokes. Number one is the mitzvah, is a squeezing out of the blood, an indispensable part of the blood service for the bird. So you have Rav Huna saying in the name of Rav, no, it's a mitzvah, but not li'ikuva. And Rav Ada bar Ava saying in the name of Rav, ultimately again, absolutely, it's li'ikuva, it's la'akev. If you don't do it, the carbon's not good. We'll say for our purposes, what's the major nafkamina? Major nafkamina, when is the Meilah prohibition lifted? So it would appear that according to Rav Huna Amarav, the Meilah prohibition is lifted as soon as Zrika is done. Because again, the mitzvah is a mitzvah, but it's not ma'akiv. According to Rav Ada bar Ava Amarav, the Meilah prohibition is only lifted when? After the mitzvah, after the blood is actively squeezed out and put by the base of the mizbeach, then Meilah is gone. So we'll say, so let's analyze. Tashma. So we'll say, so the Gemara quotes the pasuk, V'hanishar b'dam yimotze al yisod al mizbeach chatasi. So we'll say, so the pasuk literally says, the beginning of the pasuk speaks out the sprinkling of the blood. V'hiza midam achatas al ker mizbeach. You'll take the blood and you'll sprinkle it on the wall of the mizbeach. V'hanishar b'dam yimotze yisod al mizbeach chatasu. And the remainder of the blood in the bird shall be squeezed out by the base of the mizbeach. It is a chatos. So Bishlam Rav Ada bar Ava. So according to Rav Ada bar Ava, the pasuk reads beautifully. Hainu dichsev v'hanishar badam yimotze chatosi. So we'll say, remember again, Rav Ada bar Ava will say, look what the pasuk says. You have to squeeze out the remainder of the blood by the base of the mizbeach. It is a chatos. That phrase of chatos here, it seems to be a modifier on the last phrase, on the mitzui. You have to squeeze out the blood by the base of the mizbeach. Why? Because this is part of the chatas process, which tells us that what? Tells us what? The mitzui is an indispensable part of the bird offering. Without mitzui, the carbon is not good. Rav Huna, my vahan nishar. But according to Rav Huna, what do you do with vahan nishar? Kedetana debe Rabbi Shmuel she'im nishar. So I'll say what it says is, how does he use it? He uses it to teach me she'im nishar. I will say, what does she'im nishar mean? Look at Rashi for just a moment. Look at the time of Rabbi Shmuel she'im nishar. Rashi left hand side about 12 lines from the bottom. Kilomar im nishar min adam mitzvah lasos mitzui aval lo nishar lo ma'akev the mitzvah eno ma'akev. So we'll say what he teaches is, he says im nishar means if there is blood left, you should do mitzvah. But if for some reason there's no blood left, no. Right? We'll say whatever the mitzias is, right? Whatever the mitzias would be. See, here in the sense, im nishar actually is just the opposite. Im nishar is like an optional phrase. If there's blood left, you should do mitzvah. But if there's not blood left, don't worry about it so much. Umay chatasi. But I will say, Rav Huna, what do you do with the phrase im chatasi? And I will say, im chatasi sounds like a very strong statement telling me that what? That mitzui is an indispensable part of the chatas process. Umay chatasi areisha. ultimately, again, he will say that last phrase of chatasu, ultimately, again, is not going on the mitzui, but rather, what is it going on? V'hiza midam chatas. It's actually going on the first phrase, ultimately, again, in the pasuk, which is talking about the actual sprinkling of the blood. So we'll say, so therefore, again, we have this fundamental machlokes about, again, everyone agrees, of course, that you do what we call haziyah, or hazaya, right, the sprinkling of the blood of the bird on the mizbeach. Fundamental shaila is, what is the role, ultimately, again, of what we call the mitzvah, the squeezing out of the blood. Rav Huna saying that it is a mitzvah, but it is not ma'akiv. Rav Ada bar Ava telling us that it is absolutely likuvan, indispensable part. We'll stop over here for today, and we'll continue with this machlokes tomorrow.